Good evening and welcome to tonight's Leinster Rugby Roundup show. The Leinster Laighin, part of the ThreeBOD rugby group, and tonight's show is brought to you in conjunction with Rugby Academy Ireland, a pioneering international rugby academy helping aspiring players enhance their rugby and lifestyle skills through practical training and a bespoke curriculum, equipping students with an excellent education and the qualifications needed to begin a career in professional rugby. This year's Easter camp for girls aged 16 to 18 sees former England 15s and 7 star Heather Fisher coaching, and go to rugbyacademyireland.ie for further details. And also tonight, we thought you'd like to hear something that took our boss, Big Show Shepherd's eyes this last week, the Rugby Wine Club, and I have to say it took mine as well. Launched by former England rugby star Mike Tyndall, the Rugby Wine Club is a new idea helping to prop up grassroots rugby, with at least 50 pence of the profit from each bottle of wine you buy going directly to grassroots rugby clubs. So everyone benefits. And again, go to www.therugbywineclub.com for more details. Each month on our Rugby Roundup show, we look at all aspects of rugby within and affecting the Irish province of Leinster, including grassroots, provincial, European mixed ability, visually impaired, provincial, European mixed ability, wheelchairs, women's, schools, and much, much more. In this month's show, we'll be looking at the United Rugby Championship Games Review, Leinster Squad Update, departures and contract renewals, inclusive tag rugby, men's Six Nations versus England, and the women's Six Nations proper. And tonight we will be joined by Eamon O'GRADY of the Westmanstown RFC to talk about the Westmanstown Wasps inclusive tag rugby team. And I'm Gerry Sweeney, and co-hosting with me tonight is Nathan JOHNS. You are most welcome to the show.
It's been a while, but I'm coming out of my shell. And I never thought I would fall in love with someone just like you. And nobody here now, I hear you calling out, I hear you calling out for love. Ain't nobody here now, but I hear you calling out, I hear you calling out for love. I hear you calling, I hear you calling, no, no, no. I hear you calling, I hear you
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Nathan. How are you?
Evening, Gerry. How are you? Good to be back on. Good to be back out of the TMO truck this month.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you in.
Yeah, enjoyed my dalliance with the technical side, but good to be front of house as well. And evening, everybody. And our resident historian Gerald is a bit ill this week, so we hope he's all right. Hope he's doing okay. And of course, good evening to Connor, our usual host as well. He's on a break this week, this month rather. So, Gerry, what are we chatting about? I think we're going to start off with talking about some URC form before we get on to some of the other topics. I mean, always easy to forget when Six Nations is on, but there's been a handful of decent enough wins for Leinster since we last spoke. I make it Ospreys, Edinburgh, Lions, and Benetton have all been beaten. So what have you made of what the boys have been doing?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. I mean, we look at Leinster and Ospreys, a 29-7 win. Yeah, it was good going, I think, and not to be kind of bigging up Ospreys, but it's great to see Dan Lydiate back after a big injury, after a year, which is significant for Wales going forward in the championship as well for the Six Nations. So it was really, really good to see that. Look, I mean, if you look at all the results, they're all pretty good. I mean, you can go down through them. Leinster Ospreys 29-7, Leinster Edinburgh 26-7 against the Lions 21-13. They had a bit more of a harder night's work at that one. The Lions made them really, really work for it. And then we can look at Benetton, a 61-17 win for Leinster there, and Benetton greatly depleted, I think, because of the Six Nations as well and Italy's involvement. So it's hard to read anything into that particular game, to be fair. But the other ones, there was some really, really nice rugby play, some lovely cohesion as well. You know what I mean? If you take the toughest game, was probably the Lions game, to be fair.
We're back. So I think I might have jumped a bit there. We're back. But I think I had mixed feelings about the last 2 weeks, because at times I thought Leinster are being challenged here more than they have been in previous international windows, especially maybe in that Edinburgh game. And the Lions as well. I mean, they dominated the set piece in that game, didn't they? And then
Yeah.
just as soon as you start thinking that, and the product of the league is getting a bit better, then there's the Benetton game. And look, you're never going to say no to a win, but I don't think we've had this conversation 1,000 times, both at URC level and at Six Nations level with Italy. I mean, it doesn't do anything for the product of the game and for drawing in people who don't normally watch, or who on a Saturday afternoon they're not going to tune in to watch that unless they're the likes of us who are going to watch regardless. So yeah, I mixed feelings. On one hand, I like the fact that Leinster are being challenged, but on the other, obviously you still want Leinster to be in a really strong position. But as far as I'm aware, they top the table at the minute. They obviously have that really tricky trip to Ulster. I mean, they're probably going to get a load of players released now, aren't they, from the Ireland camp based on who's been selected. So I actually, that's a game I could very much see us losing, to be honest.
It'll be a tough task up there, and Ulster are good form as well. Then it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. It really, really will. It really will. Might be worth making the trip up there, maybe, but we'll see. We'll see.
I actually do have tickets, because that was the one that was supposed to be the New Year's Day game. So Christmas presents for a few people from me were tickets to that game. And they've rescheduled it to England Day, which is a bit frustrating. Of all the days they rescheduled it, they rescheduled to the day we're playing England. But anyway, I mean, one guy I wanted to talk about who's really stepped up. I think, even he's 20 years old, I think, and you can make all the points about opposition you want, but I think for a 20-year-old kid to be impressing the way he is Joe McCarthy. I mean, everyone's worried about Leinster and Ireland's second row stocks, and here comes this massive 20-year-old kid who's clearly eating lots of chicken, and
my favorite phrase.
I know, and he's going to eat a lot more, I think, as well. And he's only 20 by all accounts. He's still got quite a bit of filling out to do, which is a brilliant prospect, because we don't, it's said a lot, but Ireland just doesn't necessarily produce these big athletes that can go and be dominant tight head second rows.
No, we don't seem to at all, and it's just great to see this machine coming through. It really, really is, and a credit to the academy setup of bringing these guys and identifying them early, and giving them a pathway to bring them through, because we really, really need them. And as you say, as a population, we tend not to breed them that big. You know what I mean? And if you look at Dan Sheehan as well, and he's a big guy, and he's very much an exception to the rule when it comes to hookers. You know what I mean? So it's fantastic to see. And a guy that's only going to grow and grow and grow and grow. The more mentoring he gets, the more focused he gets, the more confidence he gets as well. It's really, really great to see. The future is bright in that regard, especially when you see some of the guys kind of maybe stepping away, the likes of, we'll talk about it later on in the show, with the contract renewals, like Devon maybe retiring at the end of the season as well. You know what I mean? He's been a great stalwart. So it's just great to see people slotting back in and just keeping the traction going forward for the next few seasons.
For sure. I mean, Big Joe's just asked us there, is Joe McCarthy the find of the season? And I think Leinster have found more exciting players in the past, especially what last year when Scott Penny had his breakout campaign and things like that. But for me, this is more important, because this is a position that Leinster and Ireland don't have a lot of depth in. I mean, we produce back rows like God knows what, ball playing back rows who can score tries and have really high work rates, like Levy, Van der Fleer, and Penny, but we don't produce these guys. Munster tried to get in Jean Klein for that job. It didn't really work. Now, we've obviously nicked Jason Jenkins off them, so there's obviously something there. We don't think McCarthy's quite ready, which is, fair enough. He's a 20-year-old kid, but he's still on an academy contract, and up until January he was playing AIL. So I can understand why they've still signed someone like Jenkins. But for me, lock and loose head prop are probably the areas where the depth is not as strong. So that's why he would be the find of the season for me.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree, I have to say. Another coming in, Jamie Osborne is another one improving all the time, and great to see him rewarded with a senior contract. Absolutely. I mean, you like to see effort being rewarded, and you like to see commitment being rewarded as well,
Absolutely. And he's another interesting one. Jamie, where is he going to play? Is he going to play fullback? Is he going to play centre? He's played a lot of centre recently. They seem to be putting everyone in the centres these days. Harry Burns has been playing a lot of centre as well. So, he's also been fantastic. And if you look at him and you look at McCarthy, maybe it starts to make a bit more sense now why Jack Dunn and Rory O'Loughlin have left. Yeah,
and we spoke a show or two ago about this machine that Leinster is, in the amount of players that they're producing, and the problem we have is trying to keep them here and give them somewhere to play. And invariably, they either end up going to one of the other provinces or they end up leaving the island. And that's not good for business, as they say in the IRFU, and it can be hard to keep these guys here. So absolutely, it's a tough one to kind of fathom sometimes. But if that's the way it is, that's the pro game,
Yeah, I mean, speaking of lads leaving the province and staying on the island, at least, I mean, it's disappointing that Jack and Rory have left the island per se. I mean, Jack Dunn's English qualified, so I don't know if he's pursuing something there, but it certainly makes sense for Exeter to pursue him, because I think that's a box tick for them. I mean, Gerald is getting on. He's saying it's great to see the AIL lads getting a go. And yeah, I mean, Joe, like we said, he was playing for Trinity up until January, so it's a feather in the cap for the league as well. They're clearly doing something right if he's able to come in and have an effect, albeit during a Six Nations period, but still. Yeah, you mentioned lads who were kind of jumping ship. Adam Byrne was announced today is going to Connacht. Peter Dooley's going as well. I think I saw a report that Hawkshaw is probably going over there as well.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it was in the paper last week. So it's one of those that the journal thinks he's got it early and they haven't officially announced it yet. So you think it's there, but you're not sure.
Yeah, they said about Felipe Pommy going to Argentina as well, and that didn't happen either. So Michael Check has gone down that side of the world. So
yeah, well, the latest I heard actually is that Felipe is going to be his assistant, and then he's going to take over after the World Cup. So I mean, who knows? But there's lads leaving. You said we spoke about this a couple of shows ago, but the exodus is happening. But from my point of view, it could be a lot worse. The lads we could be losing, at least so far, is probably the lads that want to hang on to it. So the likes of Doris has signed a new deal. Van de Fleer has signed a new deal. The two Burns have signed a new deal. Ross, there were strong rumours of Ross going to France. He's not, which I think is amazing. But maybe that makes sense when Johnny's leaving at the end of next season.
But they have to have a succession plan. There's no other choice. Whatever it takes to keep that guy here and keep him playing rugby. You know what I mean? And as time wears on, you'd hope that he'll grow and grow. So.
Do you think that means that they don't back Harry Byrne as much as they did 6 months ago? Because I think 6 months ago he was the golden boy.
I think I might get in trouble for some of my opinions on this show, but I keep on throwing them out anyway because people are controversy. But no, I agree 100%. I just don't see it. I really don't. And I think he's better further out along the line. He really, really is. He just seems to kind of hinge a little bit better out there. I don't know what it is. Maybe the expectation or the pressure or what, I don't know. But yeah, definitely not a 10. So maybe, I don't know.
With Connacht, and Joe's just throwing out a big fishing net there. I'm not sure if we're going to bite on that. We're not going to go down that route. The Connacht captain Jared Butler just signed a new deal, so at least he's a non-Leinster boy. So they have him, and then Mac's doing well as well, even though he didn't make it. But yeah, I mean, we should probably mention Johnny there. It was probably the worst kept secret in Irish rugby that he was going to extend his deal until the World Cup. But I was interested that it was very interesting that he actually came out and said, "Yeah, that's it. This is the last dance." So there's going to be an 18-month kind of rolling the red carpet out for Johnny in terms of the goodbye party. Yeah,
it's interesting, and again, he kind of gets to go on his own terms. A lot of guys who pull on that shirt don't get to go on their own terms, and I think popped up on my Google photos this week. It was 8 or 9 years ago. Brian O'Driscoll's last game in the Aviva, and they had a big inflatable thingy with his face on it and all the rest. And I think Ronan O'Gara was in the commentary booth that day, and he kind of said, well, at least he got to pick when he was going, that sort of a way. So some of these guys don't get a choice at all. So yeah, it was interesting. As you say, the worst kept secret in rugby, but look, we'll have him for the World Cup. I mean, his influence is not just on the pitch, and I spoke with this before. It's what he does on the training park as well. The mentoring and the leadership role that he fulfills is huge. That's worth his weight in gold. So I think they have to have him there, even if he's not going to play a huge amount of rugby. And that seems to be the way it's been for the past kind of season or so. He's not getting a huge amount of wear, let's say. He's been minded, and he's been minded for the World Cup next year. There's no doubt about it. So, but no, it's great to see him sign on. And sure, we know what way it's going to end up next September. So, it's what quarterfinal defeat. Say that again.
What a quarterfinal defeat! Is that what you're saying?
We're going to go all the way, aren't we?
It's interesting you say going out on his own terms. I mean, his terms, he said it in a press conference yesterday, his terms are he's going out winning the thing. So, I mean, he's setting his stall out. There's a change of culture in this Andy Farrell team. They're not scared of talking about their ambitions, whereas I think maybe they were like, no, you can't be saying that, lads. We're going to get battered if you start talking about winning the World Cup. So they're a more confident side and a relaxed side, I think.
I think definitely you're right there with what Andy Farrell has done with the team. I think it's been transformational. We looked at the early part of his tenure and we weren't so sure. We weren't kind of getting results, and the play was a little bit lacking. It was a bit bland, and you kind of go, "Is this more of the same?" Literally, you know, in the background, he was weaving his magic and working his whispers. And this is a guy who can talk to guys, you know, talk to people. He's a great man manager, which perhaps something that Joe Schmidt probably wasn't as good at, to be fair to him. But definitely Andy Farrell is a real man manager, and the players who've come into that environment have really, really bought into what he's selling, and the results show it. So it's really, really positive. So.
Yeah, by all means. And I think Peter O'Mahony was up doing press today as well, and he said this is the way they communicate. Like, it's a real learning environment. You know, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's like Andy's big mantra, and you can kind of tell that because, you know, lads are able to express themselves more. And I think that if they're comfortable and, you know, they're not worried about getting a bollock in every 5 seconds or something. I'm not saying that was the case in the past, but clearly it's much more. There's a lot of give and take there, and it's working for now. I mean, it works when they're winning and they're playing good rugby, but we'll see. You know, people always find problems with systems when the games go wrong. But yeah,
we've been in this position before where we've been playing good rugby to 18 months out or 12 months out from a World Cup, and then we head in and things go kind of pear-shaped. But anyway, we hope for the best and we'll be positive.
Sorry, brief interruption there. That's when family members don't look at their phone when you tell them that you're busy from 8 till 9 o'clock.
You're lucky you've got no kids in your house. That's a different story. You might see my door flying up next in a few minutes. So.
Grant, I mean, before we move on to Eamon, is there any other? I mean, we said we briefly touched on the contracts there and the new lads coming in and lads leaving. Is there anyone we forgot? I know we mentioned the two Burns and Doris, etc. Is there anyone else that we forgot to mention that signed a new deal? They do this thing where they announce like 6 in a day, so it's hard to keep track. But
yeah, it's hard to see. There's so many of them. I mean,
Healy signed a contract extension, which I thought was interesting.
How long has he signed it for?
I think he signed 2 years, which I thought was very interesting. He's going to stay on post 2023, which I thought was very mental given his age profile. But maybe they're worried about loose head depth and they've thrown a bit of cash at him to stay for an extra year. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a pity Peter Dooley went to Connacht. I think, you know, I think there's a potential there, you know.
Okay.
But yeah, there's so many of them, and I know I had a list here somewhere, and we could talk again. Something you could talk about for the whole show is the you know, a list as long as your arm of guys who are coming and going or staying or possibly moving on. We don't know, you know.
Yeah, Gerald at the Leinster show will keep evolving with the academy and the AIL. Yeah, and look, they're tapping into the AIL more and more now, aren't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's another pathway, you know what I mean, outside of representative size and things like that. I mean,
well, they need to do it even more. I think you know they need to. You know, the day that there's a 50-50 split between schools and AIL is the day that they've properly tapped into that. Anyway, should we bring Eamon in?
Absolutely. So, as part of our 2022 joint initiative program, the Rugby for Everyone, tonight we are looking at inclusive tag rugby, a topic which is close to my heart, I have to say, with the work we do with the Blue Dragons in Navan. And we are going to talk with Eamon, who is from the Westmanstown Rugby Club and the Westmanstown Wasps.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing, guys?
Very good evening, Eamon O'GRADY. How are you? Nice to see you on the show. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much, and delighted to be here.
Brilliant. So, as you know, I coach the Blue Dragons in Navan. We're an inclusive tag rugby team as well. I'm very, very, very much kind of minis and youths, but I know that you guys in Westmanstown have a little bit more than that in terms you've got an adult offering as well. So tell us all about it. What drives you to do it? What makes it happen?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, great. Yeah. So about 10 years ago, the club, with a group of good parents, really a good set of parents, decided to start back then what we called just tag rugby. It was special needs tag rugby, and we got people together. We got club members involved, and got players out. And we really didn't know what we were getting ourselves into at the time. There were about 3 or 4 other clubs in Leinster at the time. De La Salle, Palmerston, Sea Point, Greystones, for example, come to mind. And they were a great help, actually. And I know you had David Hicks a few weeks ago. And David was a great help to us, and so was Joanne and Sea Point and Keith out in Greystones to help us get going and to get the game up and running. And we just opened it to everybody. And, you know, very lucky early on, great support from the club. You'll see a picture there of Isaac Boss. Isaac got involved with the club and got involved with the team and came out on every Sunday morning, even after a Leinster match the night before. and really endeared himself to the players, and that helped to drive them on. And we were open to all ages. It doesn't matter who, doesn't matter what ability. There's a place for everybody in the club. We train on a Sunday, but the players look forward to blitzes. They look forward to there. You can see playing down in the Aviva Stadium at halftime was a huge thing for our players. COVID has been a terrible distraction insofar as 2 years out of just not being able to play and really not being able to play against other teams as well. Because one thing about inclusive tag rugby is that there's a great relationship between every team. All our players know each other. When we go out to Barnhall or to any of the other clubs and we have a blitz, it's like a reunion for all the players. So I know there's one coming up in Terranure now in May, and this will be the first blitz that we'll be playing in 2 years. And everybody's excited about that. The players are looking forward to it. And, if people think that they don't take it seriously, they take it as seriously. Nathan, you talked about the AIL. Well, our players, this is their AIL, and they want to perform. They watch Leinster. They want to do kind of moves that Leinster do. Johnny Sexton's a huge hero, and one of our players recently reached out to him, sent him a little video message on the morning after his 100th cap, and Johnny was back within an hour with a message to him, and that's what rugby is about. So we've got a group of coaches that we've worked together with the players, and we help players along. So like not every player, no more than any other team, has the same level of skill or ball-eye coordination. So we'll work with players individually to help them develop, and it doesn't matter, as I say, what their ability is. That's and the players themselves accept that. Like respect is what it's all about. It's the most important thing we have in the team is respect, and everybody respects everybody else. But on the social side, no different to any other team. Again, we go on trips. We've been to Birmingham, Belfast, Limerick. We've played in that wooden spoon tournament. It's an international competition for England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. And we've played in that, and it's been a really great experience for our players. So for them, they see this as the same as an AIL match or a club cup match or whatever, with the slight exception that it's not win at all costs, right? It's play, it's enjoy, it's participate, be part of it. We're really, really back raring to go. We have great support from the club. I have to say also Leinster and the IRFU have really embraced, disability rugby and inclusive rugby. There's different types of it now. We see, mixed ability rugby as well as another element of the game. But in our club, it's tag rugby. We're happy with that. Most of our players are comfortable with that. And funny thing, like we talk about attack and defense. Well, for us, for one of our players, like some of them are really good at tagging rather than scoring tries or passing, and they pride themselves on preventing a score, the same as the Leinster backline would pride themselves on shutting the team out. We applaud players for doing things like that, and we see the progress in the players, and I've got one really, really great story. Some of our players are with us from the start. I think of players like Aaron Slevin and David Kane and Mark O'Mara, Saul Hill. But Aaron Slevin is a player who came through all the way through as a player and is now one of the coaches of the team. And Aaron studied sports in Blanchardstown in TUD there, and now is working in Maynooth University. But Aaron is there every Sunday, working with the players, helping them out. So he's a guy. So it's no different to any other team within the club. It's treated the same as every other team in the club. It has its club representatives on the executive committee. It gets support from the other teams, and towards the end of the year, we'll play a game with some of the underage teams. So it's a really inclusive. It's a very good family thing. How I got involved myself was, I really didn't I didn't plan this. My own daughter was in her leaving cert at the time, and she wanted to be a primary school teacher, and she wanted to get involved, and I volunteered to be her driver. And within weeks, I just got hooked on it, and we're still doing it. And as a family activity, it's the one thing myself and my daughters do together every week, and we get great personal pleasure from that ourselves. So it's no chore. It's great fun, and it's really all about participation and fun, as I say.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And tell me this, when you set up and when you got going, did you find it hard to get buy-in from, say, some of the other members of the club to come on board for coaching and things like that?
Yeah, well, it was a leap into the unknown. We weren't sure, are we doing the right thing? How do we do this? So we did get some help. We got people to come in and explain and help us to understand what, how this coaching is different. And I think that's something that's evolved over the years. Like, you're not talking about getting players in and learning how to scrummage, but when we think about hand-eye coordination, getting a pass away is you need to work on that. But as I say, we got great help from the other clubs. I have to say, in particular, De La Salle, Sea Point, and Greystones at the very start were just brilliant. And there was a great camaraderie between the clubs, and we trained with each other. So early days, we visited each other for training sessions so that players got used to each other as well. So that when they met then in the Blitz, they all knew each other. In fact, it's more friendly. I don't need to explain this to you, Jerry. You see it yourself with the Blue Dragons, and like, look, back then there was 4, 5, 6 clubs on the island. Now there isn't. Back at that time, you could have a Blitz and have every team in Ireland playing it. Now we have to kind of partition and Leinster even and look, because pretty much every club has an inclusive team of one form or another, and that's great. Like, and it's a learning curve for everybody. It was a learning curve for the club, and even the name. We started out with just the Taggers. We were Westmanstown Taggers, and a sister club in Belfast was the New Forge Taggers, right? And then our players kind of wanted to have a name for themselves, and each team was choosing names, and our club colours were black and amber, and the players themselves chose this little guy, the Wasp, as our thing. So that's how we became the Westmanstown Wasps, right? And that was voted on by the players. They thought about wolves, they thought about wallabies, they thought about all kinds of names, and they came up with the Wasps. And so, as I say again, no different to any other team in the club. They have their own structure, they have their own methodology. We train same time every week, and people show up, and you can see that top left photograph. They've all got their medals from one of the Blitz tournaments we played in, and some of those guys are with us from the very start. So yeah, really, really good.
Yeah, it's fantastic what you're doing, and I spoke before about giving members of our society the opportunity to play a sport with their peers, and for me that's a huge thing. You can see it there as well. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and a lot of our players know each other from school, or they compete in Special Olympics, they compete in other sports, and I see Portarlington is another club that is just coming up there now, and it's great to see all around the country. But it also draws in family members, right? So there are, that's a thing that's not seen, but like we see, parents, siblings wanting to get involved in other parts of the club. So again, it's about community, it's about family, it's about pulling it all together, and they do the same thing. We have trips down to the RDS, a day out. They all go with their even if they're not playing at halftime. We had them there 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and all went for a meal and had a bit of fun, and just a good day out, the same as any other team or any other club.
How many players have you got?
So over the years, we players come and go. So right now we have about 20 at various ages. Nathan. We've some very young players, 8, 9, 10, under 15. And then we've got some very senior players, and guys like Brendan O'Donoghue, who has been with us from the start. Brendan's in his 30s now. David Kane is in his 30s. So we've got a full range. And again, age doesn't really matter here. It's much more about, like, all of the players are very accepting of each other, and it's just about matching ability. And so when we finish every Sunday with a game of tag, right? But we'll balance that, and coaches will work with players to ensure that every player gets the same opportunity to pass, run, score, defend. So like the coaches, we kind of play. We kind of play in the game. We don't score. Coaches are not allowed to score, but we'll assist the player maybe if needed. You know what I mean? So it's a bit of fun, right?
I think if that scenario is anything like what goes on in Navan on a Sunday morning, the coaches seem to have their own game going on by themselves. Oblivious to everybody else, it can be a real challenge sometimes.
Jerry's mowing down, lads.
Oh, I'll tell you now,
tear through the people.
No doubt about it. I mean, the referee gets questioned, and coaches tend to ignore the referee if it's a whistle against themselves. We have to think about that at times, but it's great. It's, again, I can't say it enough. It's about fun, and it's every Sunday we come away from there. Everybody feels energized. It's for the hour and a half we're there. It's just about fun. It's about running the ball. And it's about respect as well. And it's something that we do ram home. And no more than any other team, if there's any little bit of argy-bargy, we'll stop it and we'll say, look, it's about respect.
And that happens. It happens, and that's it,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We're all people at the end of the day. No, it's absolutely fantastic.
Oh, it's great. And there is a great community. And as I said, again, the IRFU have embraced this. We had a meeting there recently with Dave McKay down in Turnure, and there was a great turnout. I think something like 40 clubs showed up, and there's good.
So it was around December time. Was it the start of December? I think that happened.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
it
was.
Missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were you there? Oh, you weren't there.
No, I had COVID. I couldn't go.
Oh.
Yeah, I had a good excuse. I got a good excuse not to go. But I hope to go.
Well, I think you just mentioned COVID. COVID probably has impacted our players more than any, because we have to be extra careful, right? Just that some players would have vulnerabilities that others wouldn't, and so for some of them it's been really, really difficult, and they're just getting back and getting into it. And COVID has been quite cruel on our players, and it, I know it disrupted everybody, but it was very difficult. So, but we're back. We're in our pod. We haven't done a blitz yet, but as I say, we're looking forward to that. I think Turnure is probably going to be the first one we're going to participate in.
Yeah, well, we're working towards that as well. We're working towards.
So really it's on the cards. It's on the cards then, is it, for both of you?
Yeah, it is. It's the Maybank holiday weekend, isn't it? The start of May. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah. You got that. Look forward to.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's brilliant. So, Eamon, listen, thank you so much for coming on. Is there? I don't know if you've got anything. If you got anything else you want to ask, Jerry, or if you got anything else you want to say, or anyone you want to mention, Eamon. But just thank you. It's always fantastic to hear this.
Yeah, well, we're open. We're an open club, so it's the Garda Rugby Club at Westmanstown. It's Garda Westmanstown Rugby Club, but it's an open club. Sometimes people think it's a closed club. You've got to be a member of the Guards, or your family has got to have a guard in it. That's not the case. We're wide open for players from Clonsilla, Lucan, West Dublin, any part out there. Please come out to us. We're there every Sunday at 12 midday. We train on an AstroTurf turf pitch, so weather doesn't bother us, and we're delighted. We're open and we're welcome to anybody. So anybody who wants to join us, please come along any Sunday morning, or contact me and I'll make arrangements.
And Four Provinces Rugby Group on Facebook did a fantastic review of the team as well. Lots of good information there as well, if viewers want to look that up too. So, but no, thanks a million, Eamon. It's been fantastic to talk to you. I look forward to meeting you down the road.
Indeed, Jerry. Look forward to it. Maybe we can game between the Blue Dragons and the Wasps. Yeah,
absolutely. We'll chalk it down, as they say. We'll chalk it down. Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Thanks.
That sounds like a good Leinster Laighin day out. Go watch.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do an OB for that one.
On tour, Leinster Laighin on tour. No, brilliant. And obviously, thank you to Eamon again for coming on. We're always delighted when people come on to share their stories with us, and it's very, very easy to get behind these initiatives, and it's fantastic. As you well know, Jerry, but yeah, brilliant. And I'm delighted to hear that there's some games coming up as well. I remember the first time you came on, yeah, I think it was just after, like we were mid lockdowns or something like that, and you're just saying, like, the training is good, but at the end of the day, it's good kind of to be able to get that on the horizon and to get the kids mixing with other clubs and stuff as well. So it's brilliant that you've got that penciled in for me.
Yeah, that's what brings them on. That's what brings them on. It's great.
Yeah, you need a bit of competition, like.
Yeah. Oh, it's very competitive. super competitive.
Sounds like you're the competitive one whenever you join in, Jerry. But anyway.
Me? No, that's not. I'm a big slow prop these days. I don't move very fast. The kids move faster than I do. So anyway, there you go. We move on.
We'll move on. Right. We can't obviously go this week without mentioning that it is, of course, England week, arguably the biggest week of the tournament, depending on who you talk to. So we couldn't get anyone on live, sadly, but we did get Andy DANIEL of the ThreeBOD rugby group to chat to me. I think it was yesterday. I had a chat to him, but yeah, we had a good little chat about where England are and what he said about Ireland and what he thinks. And to be honest with you, some of the things he said about Ireland, I won't spoil it, but some of the things he said about where he sees this Irish team and who should or should not be playing, I'll leave you with that hint. But yeah, it was really, really interesting. So yeah, we're gonna bring you now, Andy DANIEL, to give us the English perspective.
Andy DANIEL, our resident English expert. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm very good, mate. I'm very good.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We always like to get an English voice on in England week because I certainly find it hard to kind of gauge where the two sides are and put aside not so much biases, but maybe the scars of recent Twickenham trips. And I don't necessarily share the optimism of a lot of Irish fans, but from your point of view, where are you at? Where do you see this England team at the minute?
Yeah, just on that, you've given us a few scars over the last couple of years at Twickenham as well, so I think we're both wounded. Yeah, I was quite optimistic before the Wales game. I thought we were on the verge of sort of hitting our straps because, look, other than one really piece of idiocy by Luke Cowan-Dickie, we should probably be 3 from 3 right now. Wales game we should have put to bed, but again, I think the running theme through Eddie Jones's England teams is there seems to be some sort of mental fragility when the pressure is turned back on them, and we concede one try, the Josh Adams try, and then all of a sudden it's sort of like panic station. So I think a lot of teams realise that now. Manu was a big loss. Manu was a huge loss. I was looking forward to him coming back in against Wales because I think Marcus Smith needs that option outside of him. He needs somebody to come short, go long. Manu, I think probably the most effective, if you ever want to see Manu play, sort of bring it up, was the pre-World Cup game against Ireland. Every single try, he was either carrying the ball or the dummy runner that sort of attracted 2 or 3 players towards him. So I think he was a big miss for us. And I think he is a big miss for us. I think that's where we're struggling at times to get continuity in attack. And that worries me with, obviously, your back row, your second row are incredibly, incredibly mobile. I'm not sure who's fully available for you guys, but obviously like Tyke Burn worries me. Van der Fleer worries me. Caelan Doris is just on another level at the moment. So from my side of things, I see Underhill's back in the squad. I'd love to see a back row of Underhill, Donbrandt and Curry. I think we're going to need it at the breakdown. And I think the breakdown is going to be keenly contested. It's going to be massive in there. There's going to be some big hits. So if we can get a bit of ascendancy at the breakdown, then we've got a good shout. But getting Marcus Smith the quick ball and getting more imagination in our attack is going to be key if we think we can beat you boys at Twickenham on Saturday. I do agree with Eddie Jones. This isn't a mind game for me. I think you probably are the favourites just because you're a more settled team, and it's not so much about player against player. I just think you're more settled. You're playing better rugby. Gibson Park now, for instance, has really stepped up his level. I was a bit dubious about him a couple of years back, but he seems to have nailed down that shirt. So, yeah, it depends who you pick at 10 as well. I would stick with Carberry personally, but Sexton's obviously signed the contract this week, and he is a big game player.
Why would you stick with Carberry?
I just think I think A is the future. and he will have a long stint in that 10 shirt after the next World Cup. I just think Sexton is one game, 3 not so good. There's the injury side of him. But like I said, he is a big game player. But I just think Carberry going into the World Cup should be your starting 10. I think he's better in attack now just because of age. So, yeah, he'd just get the nod for me personally. And I actually think he'd worry me more against Smith than Sexton would.
That's fascinating, because I think there was a bit of chat. It kind of went under the radar because after the Italy game, everyone was talking about that scrum rule and whether or not, you know, the whole going down to 13 should be a thing. But one of the things that kind of slipped in under the radar that a few people said was that the attack actually looked a little bit more coherent when Johnny came off the bench. And I don't know if that's just because, like you said, these guys are playing a lot together. I mean, Eddie Jones talked about the provinces and how, you know, how much cohesion they have, or if that was a talent thing, or if it's because, you know, Johnny was playing with Henshaw on the outside and Gibson Park on the inside, and obviously Joey's at once. So that's really interesting when you made that point. I'm sure. I mean, I personally can't see Carberry playing. And I think by the time this goes out, the team may actually have been named. So we'll find out by the time this goes out. But that's really interesting you say that. The other thing you mentioned there, and I think you did mention a few names, but with no Dombrandt, or at least Dombrandt potentially missing with COVID. You mentioned Underhill. Do you want Underhill in there and maybe Simmons at 8? Do you see Curry sliding over? Obviously, you know, it seems you mentioned the breakdown. Everyone remembers the France game. France attacked the breakdown and got a lot of joy there. So, I mean, it seems redundant to attack a side's breakdown. You're probably going to win the game. But
yeah.
So how do you see that balance? It sounds like you're pro Underhill in that regard.
Yeah, I am. I just think he's fantastic over the ball. And Ireland have probably, well, apart from the emergence of France in the last couple of years, have probably had the best back row for quite some while now. And you got Amani slips in and out. You know what I mean? The strength and depth there is incredible. I like Simmons off the bench, and Eddie's got a bit of a penchant for dropping Curry back to 8, hasn't he? He loves Laws on the blind side. He loves that big sort of ballast there. Before, Charlie Ewels played quite well last time out, and I'm a Bath fan, so Ewels hasn't really done it for me in an England shirt yet. It doesn't really do it for me in a Bath shirt, if I'm honest. But I would prefer to see Itoje and Laws in the second row, and then a back row of hopefully Dombrandt. He seems to be fairly well in himself by all accounts, so hopefully he makes it. Simmons off the bench, but yeah, don't be surprised obviously if Curry goes back to 8 and then Underhill comes in at 7 with Laws at 6, which is a nice balance, I suppose. It's not what I would go for. I'd want Underhill at 6, Curry at 7, Dombrandt at 8. But the likelihood is, look, he's the captain now, Laws, so he's gonna play him at 6, and then we'll see.
The other thing I would say is that one thing I saw from the Wales game was when they play England, Wales don't kick to touch because they know how important the English lineout is. So maybe that comes into it. That's why you play Ewels, Itoje, and Laws, because the lineout is absolutely crucial to England's attack.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, we have a thing called load shedding in South Africa where they switch off our power. The generator's just kicked in. So apologies for the disco lights. Yeah, of course. There's plenty of options. Dombrandt's an option as well. But yeah, obviously our driving maul and our line out is really important to us. But I suppose it's kind of a toss up between what's important. I keep going back to it. I'm really worried about the breakdown. I don't think we've nailed it yet at all, or got any rhythm going. England have always been a momentum team. When we build momentum, we're very, very difficult to stop. But when it's a stop-start game like it was against Wales, we really do struggle to get that momentum and start really putting pressure on. So it's all well and good having a great driving line out and maul, but if we can't go through more than 2 or 3 phases without getting turned over at this level, then we're going to struggle to make any inroads in attack. Talk
to me about that attack then. Eddie he's gone away from the whole forward pod structure. He's made a big song and dance about he's doing something completely different from everyone else with his attack. He likes this idea of everyone popping up everywhere and not a lot of positions, not a lot of structure. And at times it's worked out quite well, it looks like, and at times it hasn't. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think he had a different backline in mind when he was. I don't know if he's half kidding or not, to be honest with you. There's lots of people there that can step in at first receiver. However, you kind of want Marcus Smith at first receiver as much as possible, or at least on that sort of sliding line behind the first wave of attack. I think that's the best way that England attack, is when we hit those screen passes deep and coming on at pace. Elliot Daly, although not a huge fan of him at 15. When he was at 15, he would come onto that at pace. You'd have Anthony Watson coming around the corner. So for me, it's about imagination with those two waves of attack, but there's got to be structure there. I get where Eddie's coming from with chuck anybody in there and nobody essentially will know what they're going to do. If Jack Noel comes in at first receiver, Freddie Stewart or whatever like that. But for me, we'll get gobbled up because we run out of our ideas after 2 or 3. So Marcus Smith's been tackled, then Henry Slade gets tackled, and then all of a sudden you start running out of creative backs. So I think I would almost have a Smith on the front sort of line of that attack, and then use Slade to come round and use his passing ability to start trying to break up that Irish defensive line, because that Irish defensive line is pretty incredible. But it does fly up fast, and there are gaps in behind it. So we've got to try and exploit those. And that's where Marcus Smith needs that quick ball to really, really try and do what he does for Quins. Give that freedom. He keeps saying freedom, but I haven't seen any of our backs play with any freedom at the moment. We're getting slow one-out ball, and then by the time it's getting to the outside centre, we've got about that much space to run into. So it definitely hasn't clicked out the back yet. So yeah, Eddie's mind games, eh?
Well, I suppose you mentioned that defensive line, and it's gone under the radar for Ireland because everyone's talking about how much better they're playing in attack. But it's easy to forget that the D's, as an Andy Farrell coach team, the D's always going to be thereabouts in the line speed. So I guess maybe that's where someone like Smith's, maybe his attacking kicking game comes into it a little more, and we see a little bit more of that. I don't know. Obviously, we'll find out. But you kind of mentioned there, you think you have your way that you'd like England to go, maybe a little bit differently. But if in 12 months' time or 18 months' time this clicks, is it worth sacrificing a little bit of cohesion now and potentially losing as a result on Saturday if that clicks in 18 months' time in France?
100% agree with you. I've said this before. I think one of the things that I don't actually mind England doing is doing a year like this, where we actually stick with it. And that's probably what backs my argument with Carberry, that let him get it wrong and sacrifice the Six Nations. I actually don't mind the way that we've approached this Six Nations with trying all of these new things out, because what tends to happen is there seems to be a mentality, and I won't sort of pick any nations out, but there seems to be a mentality of the Six Nations is everything. And I think that has shifted for Ireland now, actually. I think Ireland are starting to go, actually, the World Cup is everything, and we need to build for that. So that's why I'm surprised at the whole Sexton Carberry. I would, exactly what I said earlier, I would play Carberry and let him make mistakes if he's going to make mistakes. So, yeah, I'm all for trying new things, and if it goes wrong, it goes wrong. You can almost tick it off. Like I thought in the first 2 games, for instance, that's what Eddie Jones was doing. So he had Cowan Dickey and Simmons, I think, started, and then in the second game he had George and Dombrandt. Now, for me, that proved that George and Dombrandt should be our starters, and then Cowan Dickey, who's obviously injured this week, but usually Cowan Dickey and Simmons would come off the bench, and that seemed to work better. So I think he has tinkered with these combinations. He seems to have he's finally put his hat on Smith and Randall. I'd like to see Quirk come in now. I mean, Youngs has been a great servant, but Quirk for me is just, he's got the same sort of, so I'm definitely not going to compare him to Anton Dupont, but he's got that same build. He's got no, I can't compare anybody to Antoine Dupont. But he's got that same sort of build and that robustness about him that I'd like to see. I'd like to see more of us attacking around that fringe and trying to draw a couple of Irish defenders in this weekend. And I think Randall will do it as long as he's got the license to now and again get tackled. And that's fine. But at least try and keep that defence honest around the fringes.
Sorry, you jumped there, but said that's fine. I can edit out. Okay, and then very quickly. Well, not necessarily quickly. Take as long as you want. But give us a prediction. Then I can get you. You seem to be leaning one way, but which is probably different from how I see it. But go on. I can guess, but give us a prediction anyway.
The old cliche head and heart. This is, isn't it? I think England will do it because it's Twickenham. If it was in Dublin, I would be worried of a 15-point hiding. But I think at Twickenham, we've got a heck of a lot to prove to the public. I don't think the team have got anything to prove to themselves, to be honest with you. I think they're heading in the right direction. But we need a performance in us, otherwise we're going to go to Paris. So, and yeah, I'm worried about Paris already. But I think probably England by 3 or 4 points max. It's going to be tight.
Okay, yeah, I think I do agree with you on that. I think I've talked myself out of an Ireland win by now over the course of the week. But anyway, we'll find out. Listen, Andy, thank you so much for joining us, mate.
You're more than welcome, Nathan. No problems.
And just like that, we're back. Jerry, I have to ask you, because this blew my mind when he said this. Where do you agree with the Carberry Sexton point he made?
It's an interesting one. But yeah, well, why not? I mean, we need to have a plan going forward. I think he made a lot of good points, a lot of interesting points. To be fair, a lot of interesting points. He did. I think interesting points.
Yeah, I think the prioritizing World Cup versus Six Nations debate is always going to be one that goes on. And I think so long as Sexton plays, there will be some people who always say that Ireland prioritizes the Six Nations. But I think, he's right. There have been moves to show that he's not doing that necessarily, like Hansen getting a run out, etc. He is aiming to build quite a lot of depth. But I don't know. I really did think against Italy that when Sexton came on in the last 20 minutes, Ireland's attack just looked much better. And you can say what you want about 13 men or whatever, but it just seemed to click more. But maybe that's an argument for playing Joey so he can get up to that level. I don't know.
Let's hope our execution is better in this game on Saturday than it was against Italy. Even 13 man Italy.
For sure.
It was poor.
What was mentioned there was the makeup of the English back row. We now know it, and Don Brandt is playing. He's on the bench, even though he did have COVID last week. He's Andy seemed to think Underhill might get in there, but it is Laws, Simmons, Curry. Personally, I think I'm actually quite happy to see that, because I think from an attacking Ireland at the breakdown point of view, Underhill would have been a nightmare in there. So to have Curry at 7, he's clearly a very good jackler, but I'd rather him than Underhill. And obviously, Otoje is very good at the breakdown as well. But it just means that there's one less threat to worry about, I think. But that being said, their line out's going to be excellent with Laws at 6 as well.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's going to come down to the shoulder battle at the ruck, isn't it? I mean, people are kind of querying why Peter O'Mahony might have been brought back in for Ireland. And that's exactly the reason why, because he's an absolute sniper. And he is a dog, and he's wily as well. That's why you want those guys there in games like this too. Yeah, you're right about Otoje. He's going to be an absolute disruptor. Hands, feet, you name it. And with a bit of luck, he'll be offside all day long, and we'll eke a couple of penalties out of it. So.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we want to talk about one other thing before we go, and we're running out of time. So quickly, how do you see this one going?
I'm going to disagree with both of you. I'm going to say Ireland.
You're going to say we're going to win?
Yeah, I am. I'm going to say Ireland by a score. And look at the pack that we have, and look at how mobile they are, and look at in the back row, Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer, Caelan Doris, super strong, super technical, super aggressive, and I think that's going to be the difference. If you look at how quick, a lot of stuff online this week about how quick Ireland's ball is out the back of the ruck. It's about 2.5, 2.8 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Whereas I think for England it's about 3.2 seconds. That's a long time in Test rugby, a long time. And I think we have that advantage, getting in over a ball clear, Gibson Park get it at the back swift. He didn't do that against Italy. He'll definitely do it on Saturday because he'd been ribbed for it probably all week because of it. I think that's going to be the advantage that we have. And again, I think we've got a far better front row, to be honest with you. I think Kyle Sinclair is going to be a penalty machine. I think Cian Healy will have a bit of crack there. You know, that's the way it's going to go. That's my prediction anyway. I think we're going to get a bit
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know. France, but anyway, we'll say no more about that.
Yeah. I think you make a really good point there with the breakdown speed. Quickly, obviously that would have been inflated a little bit by playing against Italy, but you know, Michele Lamoureux had a good day out in Italy at the breakdown as well. So we'll see. I think that's I like I said, I would be more worried if they had more breakdown threats playing like Underhill. But they've got impact off the bench. Don Brandt off the bench is going to be an animal. I don't think I share the Healy versus Sinclair. I think I don't know. I'm not quite sure what to make of Cian Healy at the minute, because I look back at the All Blacks game where he only came on for 90 seconds at the end, and I thought, God, if they really, really backed him in games like that, he'd be coming on there. So I don't know. But we're going to find out on Saturday, that's for sure. And
it's England, it's Twickenham, and he's last roll of the dice.
He'll be a monster, hopefully. Yeah. Anyway, right, speaking of Six Nations, there's another Six Nations about to start. Well, not about to start, but it will have started by the time we next come on. So we want to quickly talk about the Women's Six Nations, and Ireland named their squad last week. And look, the backdrop of this is fascinating. The IRFU are apologising for the way that they handled the letter that was sent and everything like that. And there was a big press conference. They're revamping the structure. There's new head of performance, etc., coming in. So it's all fascinating. But in terms of the actual squad itself, for me, there's quite a few big names in there missing. I mean, when you think about it, no Senna Opu, no Cliona Maloney, the famous slurry spreading Cliona Maloney, and then no Anna Kappas as well. Exactly. So it's a very interesting squad, and you can tell that Blackrock and Railway did well in the AIL, because I think all of the uncapped players bar one are Blackrock and Railway. So McWilliams has been watching the AIL, and he likes what he sees, because he's called half of those teams up, it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And that's right. If you're picking the squad based on performance and club performance, that's the way to do it, I think. And it's something that needs to happen more often. We were talking about it on the Leinster men's side of things, looking at the AIL side too, and how that's going to probably develop the game and develop the squad going forward. I think they need to do it. And there's a lot of talent out there, Nathan. There's a lot of talent. And the next couple of years for women's rugby in Ireland are going to be very, very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. The one name actually I want to mention there is Amanda McQuaid. She's the loose head from Railway. Railway back her so much that there have been times this season when Lindsay Peat, who's obviously retired from Ireland, Lindsay Peat has been playing 8, so McQuaid can get into the side. So there's obviously something quite special there, and she's quite young as well. So it'll be interesting to see if she gets a run out or not. I mean, it's difficult to see what's going to happen here with this group, especially because there's a lot of uncapped faces and a few experienced ones gone. But it's hard to say anything other than they'll be third behind France and England, who are so far ahead of everyone else. Yeah,
and I think, it's all about rebuilding again, isn't it? It's been an awful mess for the past 12 months for that squad, and for the IRFU side of things as well. I mean, there's a lot of bridge building to be done, and hopefully this will be the start of it. So
they need a good news story, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They do.
Fingers crossed they'll get it. I think they're starting off with Wales, so that form book should suggest that will be a winnable game, won't it?
Yeah, you'd hope so.
Especially at home. And also, sorry, the one last thing to mention about this is that they're going around the country. They've got the RDS, they've got Ravenhill, and I think, are they going down to Cork? I think they are going down to Cork as well.
Probably down to Musgrave, but yeah, there probably will be.
So they're taking them around the country, which is fantastic. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for everyone to kind of get behind and to row in, which is an interesting concept. I think they'll never do it for the men's game, because they'll never want to not sell out Fortress of Viva. But I think for this, this is fantastic. This is a clever way of trying to build an audience, is to take it all around the country, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, exciting times.
Anything else you want to chat about before we?
I just thought I'd mention, just from, again, plugging Navan Rugby Club. We had 2 girls, Jade Gaffney and Abby Moyles, who were selected for the under-18s training squad for this inaugural tournament in Edinburgh that's coming up. which is absolutely fantastic for Navan Rugby Club, and a credit to their coaches and the teammates there as well, and the structure that they have. You know, in that under 18 squad, they've got 14 girls out of 24 who are in the Northeast representative squad as well. It's a real machine, and it's a credit to Paddy Martin, Nor Carey, John Malloy, everyone in that team as well that are bringing those players through. It really is fantastic. So great for those girls and great for their families as well. So I just thought I'd mention that. And I think the last, just before we go, I think the last thing I'll probably mention as well is what's going on out in Ukraine right now. And we got some news today about a young rugby player, Ukrainian rugby player, Mikita Bobrov, who sadly was killed today along with his family just outside Kyiv. We sit here and we talk about rugby once a month. You know, we go about our daily lives and we take a lot of things for granted. It pales in significance to what's going on out there right now. You know, it really, really does. And if you look at Ukraine, it's a proud rugby country. I mean, there's over 3,000 registered players. There's 42 odd clubs. They're in that European Championship thing as well, that feeder thing, hopefully for the Six Nations down the road, if you ever get that thing sorted out. But no, it just puts everything into perspective. It really, really does. You know, we think of those people in Ukraine tonight, and to a certain extent, I think we stand with them as well. So just thought I'd mention that before we go.
Yeah, of course. No, it's horrific news across the board, not just on the rugby side of things. And look, it's not the most important issue in the world when your country's been invaded. But you know, fingers crossed, the fledgling sports like rugby and the sport in general survives. Because I think, you know, one thing that if this hopefully does end soon, or whenever it does end, obviously we don't know, society needs to rebuild, and you know, people need to be happy and doing things like playing sport or whatever it is. But sport can play, you know, a 5% role in that, or whatever, however small on that. So hopefully these sporting organizations kind of can come back and strong, and the country and help build back the country as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, a relatively, you know, upbeat future look. Hopefully that they're there, but obviously our wishes go out to everyone in Ukraine. But right, that kind of wraps us up. You know, thank you to everyone for coming on. We missed you this week, Gerald, but you know, we'll be back next month, I'm sure. Thanks to Eamon, definitely as well. Thanks to Big Joe.
Fantastic from Eamon, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Thanks to Big Joe in the truck as always.
And Connor as well, doing the online stuff too. Welcome, boys. Keeping us on the straight and narrow. We appreciate it and we need it.
Oh God, absolutely, for sure. So yeah, and also as always, thanks to Rugby Academy Ireland and the Rugby Wine Club as well. And this is the Leinster Laighin show, and we'll see you all next month.
Thanks a million, Nathan.
Pleasure.